Hello.
Hey,
We are back.
we are back.
Still here.
Yes.
So, on the flip side, we were just talking about how you can make a good impression. Take control of how people are going to perceive you when you're meeting them for the first time, whether it's for an interview, an audition, meeting your significant others, family, or friends. But on the flip side, though,
Yeah.
if you're the one meeting somebody for the first time, it is but human for you to give people a chance, right? Instead of
is.
forming
Yes.
your judgment before you even meet them.
Very, very true.
But that's very, very hard to do.
I think it's hard if it's not put into practice. But once you start doing it, it gets easier and easier.
Easy, but
Yeah.
it's instinctive, right?
It's trained. I think it's a combination of instinct and also something that we've been kind of trained to do.
Okay, before you call me an a-hole, let me explain. So, just for example, if I have a traumatic experience with a dog bit me when I was a kid. That's going to set off an entire notion about dogs for me. I wouldn't want to come close to a dog because based on my experience.
Is that true?
Bite me.
Is that what happened?
No.
Oh, okay.
I love dogs.
Okay. But you're saying if that did happen.
And then let's elevate it a bit. For example, a traumatic experience with a first love. If a guy cheated on you, or a girl cheated on you, or a significant other cheated on you, you're going to be more cautious the next time you're going to fall in love because you know how painful it is to get cheated on.
Yeah.
So all of those experiences, or it even happens in a family. If your father or somebody beats you in your family, that affects how you perceive relationships and other people.
It does.
And so it almost feels as if it is a survival instinct for you.
Yes.
That the judgment that you form based on certain conditions is a survival instinct for you.
Yes.
And instinct is so hard to fight. You die with it. Your instinct is to save your life, to survive, to eat, to drink. That's hard to fight. And so if you are going to meet a human being for the first time, that's intrinsic, that's in you. How do you avoid it and actually give them?
It is intrinsic in a way, but once you start to create an awareness, and once you have an objective with your awareness, you have the power to make a change. So Fairlane is absolutely correct. If you have a history or a story about something that's happened to you, a dog biting you or being bitten or a cheating lover, that's your story. And you're going to project your life from the lens of that particular story. And so that's what makes it feel like it's intrinsic or that it's instinctual or whatever the case may be. But I'm here to help you see beyond that. So I'm going to walk you through how we can be able to kind of become accountable for our own projections and then take a look at it and say, is this really what I want to do? So if I, have been cheated on by every single lover I've ever had, how much is that story, me projecting that story on my next lover, how beneficial is that going to be for me in my life? Okay, because more than likely, I'm not going to give this next person a chance because I'm already dealing off of the wounds. So I have a thing called let it refine you, not define you. Okay? So here, let's just put it all into, I'm going to walk you through it, okay? Here we go. Everybody has a story, okay? That part is natural. Every single thing has a story. Every cell in your body, how it came to be, every little amoeba, whatever it is, everything around you has a story. This water bottle has a story of how it ended up getting right here next to me. It has a complete story. We all have stories. So the first thing is not to deny the story that you have, right? So let's say you have so many brothers or sisters and you went to this school and you're this Capricorn or whatever the case is. Those things are set in stone. You can't change that. But what you do have power over is how you end up seeing the history of that. Let me explain. So let's say I did get bit by a dog And then so every time I see a dog, it's instinctual for me to kind of have a reaction because I've been bit, right? So that's your body responding in a way to protect itself because you've had a history of a dog biting you. But you have the power to change the lens because you know in your mind, not every dog is going to bite you. You know that there's a lot of good dogs out there, but you are making the choice to respond to a biting dog, just like you have the choice to respond to a dog not biting you. You have the choice to every lover that's ever burned you. Doesn't mean you know on an intellectual level that not every person is going to burn you or cheat on you. You know that. So you are the one empowered to make the choice. Am I going to put my focus on this or am I going to put my focus on that? And currently, you're going to put your focus on all dogs are going to bite me because of this happened. Yes, it's true and it may seem natural, but you have the power to make the choice that, you know what, maybe this next dog will not bite me. So the history of your story, and I'm not making light of anybody who has gone through any kind of trauma, recognize the trauma. Recognize that you've been bit. Recognize that you've been abused. Recognize that you've been hit. Recognize that you've been humiliated. Own it. Take accountability and say, hey, look, this has happened to me. But now you're going to take action and you're going to empower yourself by saying, that doesn't mean that the rest of my life has to be led this way. I have the power to change the lens in which I see my history, my story, and I can put new lens on it going forward. Because if I think that, let's say, I had my true love was broken, and everything was great between me and her. She was the one. Right? And then now that person's gone and whatever. My projection in my next relationship is this is never really going to work out because I never had, I messed it up with Sheila. And that was the one in a lifetime type of situation. So I've already now have predestined this particular potential of this relationship because I am looking at my history through this particular lens. How do I empower myself? I take a look at it and say, hey, look, I learned a lot from this relationship with Sheila. I learned that true love can actually exist. I've experienced a love that was so powerful, and I'm excited to take what I've learned from this situation and invest it into even a better situation. Because we got to understand this. The reason why this story exists is because it's preparing you for the next story in the future. It's prep. It's preparing you for the bigger person that you can become to go forward. That's why it happened. And you have to trust and invest in that. So you got two different kind of individuals that deal with story. Those that let the story define them, and those that let the story refine them. That choice, that's your power.
Okay, that sounds like a two-step process though.
It is.
You have your instinctive reaction, which happens very, very quickly when you see yourself in that situation, that traumatic situation again. So now if we backtrack into the original topic that I was talking about, how do you then avoid that instinctive reaction? Is it even possible for you to avoid it?
I wouldn't go with even avoid. Acknowledge.
Okay.
Just look at it and say, right now I'm feeling, let's say you are a potential lover. I like you. Everything's really, really great. But every girlfriend burned me, right? So now I'm finding ways to either sabotage this relationship with you. I find myself withdrawing from you. I'm attracted to you, but I'm scared that I'm going to get hurt again. Acknowledge it. Have that conversation. Say, listen, I've been here before, and this is what I'm feeling.
Okay.
And if the person is also being authentic, they're going to address it too. You'll be able to pick up if it's real or not.
Do you think that kind of acknowledgement and knowing what we know now about our instinct based on our experience and how it affected us, do you think that has contributed to discrimination, racism?
Yes. Yes. And yes. There is some patterning that goes way beyond just a quick thought. And I believe, and I don't know if there's any scientific proof about this, but I truly believe that a lot of our deep-seated opinions about other people and their races is you're dealing with history, you're dealing with generations of things. So it's just not you. And some people are, this is why in the nation right now, in my opinion, and maybe in the world, people are burning at effigy right now because something is transforming in them, and they're having to let go of generations of hate and prejudice and racism. And some people right now are saying enough. I can't bear the weight of my forefathers and all of that. And so they are looking for change. And some people have no idea why they have this deep-seated anger or resentment or racism towards someone. They have really no idea. They just go in there, I just don't like black people. You know what I mean? Or I just don't like Asians, or whatever the case is. Somebody's saying something like that. They don't even understand why. It's your job to do the investigation. It's your job to kind of take a look at it and figure out where is it really coming from. Because it's not fair to you or anyone else. Because you got to remember that if I'm judging you, and part of the reason why people get weird about judgment is because you're casting judgment. And if you're a person who casts judgment, then you know that's part of your problem, is because you are going to feel like people are casting judgment on you. So that's one of the things. I think everybody, to some degree, is going to cast some kind of judgment. It's human nature. But what I try to do is, if I find myself coming up with a prejudgment of someone else without knowing the facts, I had tried to stop myself and say, how do I really know that? And would I want somebody else to put that on me? Because that happens a lot with me being a black male. That happens a lot. So I don't like it. I don't like it when I walk into a room and, or I go to a retail store, and then the clerks start looking like, okay, go ahead, watch him. He's over there, whatever. You know what I mean? That feels ugly. It's really, really bad. And I have to rise above that. I don't want to go off into the world and all of a sudden start looking at other people off of descriptions like that. It's your responsibility to, you're accountable for you casting that on. And if you have feelings like that, you need to do some work. You need to look within and say, where is this coming from? Why do I feel this way? That's what I think.
There's just an interesting story. I'm trying to learn Korean, Hangukko, the language. And so I meet a lot of different kinds of people in the classes that I attend. And I'm from the Philippines. So one of my classmates, I've been asked this so many times. Like when I meet somebody for the first time, they would always ask me, are you a nurse? And because a lot of Filipinos are nurses. And I have never taken offense, because I think it's an honorable, if I have the skill and the disposition of a nurse, I would probably become one. I just don't have that. I don't have it in me. I think I'd kill every patient that I ever did if I become a nurse. And so I've been asked that question so many times. Like if they meet me for the first time, it's like, are you a nurse? And so I would, in the beginning, I would say no, and then eventually I just gave up and say, sure, whatever. But so this classmate that I had, which was a guy, was sitting across me, and he just blurted the question out. He said, are you a nurse? And I didn't know why at that moment I felt irritated, even though I've heard that question so many times. And I never really mind. As I've said, I started saying yes to the question, even though I'm not a nurse.
Yeah.
But it just felt like, you're an a-hole. And I actually told him right there and then, I said, that's very, very racist. I said, you're discriminating. I couldn't understand how I felt. I didn't know why. I just felt so offended at that moment. But I just realized, I didn't, after that, the conversation ended. I didn't pay attention to it anymore. But eventually I realized probably all the Filipinos that he has met was a nurse.
Right.
And it wasn't really something, he probably didn't mean to offend me. It's just that based on his experience, all the Filipinos that he's met was a nurse. So,
all right. So let me know when we're rolling.
We're rolling.
So imagine being this guy, okay? So he sat there, he gave this complete composite about who you are, and he made those assumptions off of that.
Yeah.
That says everything about him that you need to know, but he didn't see you as a person. And that's the part that was offensive to you, that he didn't see you as a complete, autonomous, three-dimensional, whole person. And I think that's the basis with a lot of things that are happening right now, is that everybody wants to put people in categories to make them feel safe. So it's like, hey, this is what Mexicans do, and this is what black people do, and this is what Asians do. And now they're all in their containers, and I can feel better about myself because I figured, I know what to do. And when somebody jumps out of one container and does something else over here, then it messes up the way that they see things, and they feel insecure, right? So like you being asked about a nurse, I can't tell you how many times I walked into a party and people are like, oh my God, Stevie's here, he can dance. Like or whenever if people don't know me, if you do know me, this is not true. But we used to, when I first moved to LA, I used to go to different basketball things around the city on Saturdays. And I'd show up, and if it was mainly all white, group of guys gathering for playing basketball, everybody wanted me in their team. They just looked at me and be like, yeah, we've definitely, him right there, first choice right there. And there was a big regret because I'm not good at playing basketball. So the joke's on you. But putting people in those containers makes everyone else makes that person feel comfortable. It is your job. It's not that, knock it off. We are in 2020, and that thought process is so archaic. It's hard for us to evolve as humans as long as we're thinking that way. Look at everybody as a complete autonomous individual, and oftentimes that will be reflected back onto you. Who wants to be put into a compartment? You're a person. You're a human being.
So in summary, we can say that maybe the first 2 to 3 seconds you can't avoid. How you perceive somebody,
No.
the moment you meet them, you can't avoid that. That's something instinctive.
Yes.
But the 4th, 5th, and all the seconds and minutes and hours and
Yes.
days after that, that's totally on you.
Totally on you. Totally on you. And I would think that the world would be, and your life would be better if you really started taking a look at people as human beings rather than, some kind of surface classification.
Hope you learned something.
That was good.